and all the new things that are going on, and then we'll head into a different discussion. How's that?
Okay.
Got to give you guys the plug.
Sounds good.
Okay, so you ready to count us down? Okay, so we're going to start from this shot, Linda and I, and count us down. Or actually, let's start the stream. We are streaming. Hi. Welcome to eLearnChat. This is our pre-show show, which will be done in almost no time since we've already done it, actually. So we're going to start the show anytime. Hello, everyone, and welcome to eLearnChat, episode number 200? 200, I think. We're in 200. This is episode 200 of these.
I'm 200?
You're 200. We got a special guest today, and he'll be on in a second. Linda Joy, our co-host, voiceover talent.
Hi.
A person who runs Loveland in Colorado, so that's a perfect place to be. Linda means pretty in Spanish. Joy, she is a real pleasure to work with, and she's here every week. Linda, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Rick.
Are you all ready for the holidays?
Oh, yeah, all ready.
Sounds good. I'm not. Anyway, let's start. We are back, and look who just joined us, right in that center spot, the position of importance. We've got with us today Mike Enders. He is probably the quietest, most inhibited, laid-back guy at Articulate you could ever imagine.
I try.
You try. You really try. It's hard, isn't it? It's hard. Mike is, if you've never been to one of the trade shows where Mike's talking, go see Mike. He's really good. He's a very good presenter. He comes up with great ideas, very creative. And you're here to join and talk a little bit about, hey, you guys have done some great new stuff. Mike is with Articulate, and they have some really cool new software that just Articulate 360.
Yeah. Yep, just launched right before DevLearn, speaking of the trade shows.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're really excited. It's been an awesome launch of the new tools, and the reception has been fabulous. So yeah, it's been great. We're really excited.
That is
I'm
good.
excited. I love new tools, so it's always fun to play.
Something about a new tool, even if it's a tool that's just been updated, it just makes it fun. It makes it more fun. Now, were you at DevLearn?
I was.
I wanted to go, and remember I told you we were stuck in our office move? Well, we were supposed to go, and they were supposed to move us the week before, but they blew it, and we couldn't get away because it took us 2 more weeks to move, and they were never committed to a date. So we kind of got screwed. But so we missed it for the first time in quite a while, and I really wanted to go to this one. How was the show?
It was good. It was busy. The facility, we're at MGM Grand, was great. So we had a lot of, again, we had just launched 360, so for us, it was wonderful. We had a lot of folks at the booth, and but the guild conferences are always really great, for developing your skill set, you professionally, gaining new skills and learning. A lot of pre-conference sessions, were very well attended. So, yeah, it's always an exciting time. So, for those folks that have maybe not been to a guild conference, definitely want to encourage you. DevLearn was just this past November. What else? We've got Learning Solutions, down in Florida in the spring, and then there's the mobile conference in the summer. So. Yeah, definitely great times to go and network and gain new skills.
That sounds great. Did you give a talk this time?
No, not me.
Not you this time.
You know me, I'm quiet, Rick.
Yeah. It's too bad. You always do really good talks. I've heard you in several of them, and it's always fun. They're not using their perfect resources for this.
That's very kind. So no, not this time. I got to, but again, for me, it's really awesome, working the expo, and getting to meet folks who are using our tools they're curious about e-learning and just being able to share, about the field with them. And it's such a great environment. I love going to those.
And you guys are doing really well with the tools. And 360 adds products, which is also fun. You've got Rise, the new product coming out. And just for those people watching right now, we're not going to talk too much product today. We're going to talk about different things, but in January, I believe we have Megan Miedenthal, who's going to be, she's the product marketing manager, I believe. VP of product marketing.
Yes.
She's great. She's really a very good speaker also. I was in the rollout when they did the marketing rollout. It was really fun. She does a great job presenting the product, and obviously she knows the product pretty well, which is pretty good.
Yeah, Megan's dynamite. You guys are really going to love having her on the show. So I can't wait for you guys to have her on. Because
and it's funny. I chatted with her a bit, and we have one thing in common. We both have some Slovenian blood somewhere. She's part Slovenian, and I'm part Slovenian through my mom's side, which is German-Hungarian from Slovenia. So we don't know what those... I mean, a lot of people went through Slovenia. I was going, really? Slovenian, huh? Okay.
Funny.
It's interesting. So, Mike, you wanted to talk about a couple different things today, like professional development and things that we don't really talk about that much, but are really key to getting people in this industry and the e-learning community, where things change often enough that you've really got to keep up. And talk a little bit about some of that, and Linda's got some probably questions for you. And so what do you consider business or professional development in our industry?
Well, and I think part of the conversation had started because, as we were chatting prior to this, and we also see in the community, particularly community, a lot of folks who are curious about, how do I break into the freelancing realm? So maybe I'm working at an organization, and I want to try my hand at freelancing. And so as soon as that, we get a lot of questions around that, and so that's where we start thinking about, well, what is all involved with that process, and a big piece of that obviously is going to be professional development. How do I develop my skills in a way that that I can step outside of my normal role if I'm working at an agency or an organization, as an e-learning developer, or as an instructional designer. How do I hang up my own shingle on the side? Or maybe how do I go into that full time and make that happen? And so once that thought is hatched, suddenly that opens up a whole realm of, boy, how do I go about doing that? And so that really dovetails nicely, I think, with folks in the field that are working full time in the field that want to, as you just asked, how do we do professional development? And I think that really that question it starts with that self-assessment. Where am I at? Where do I want to be? And what are those outcomes? What are those goals?
And also, what am I good at?
Well, and I think that's it. We unfortunately, and I've, as I chat with some of my own colleagues that are working in various places. So I've got some right now, for example, that are working for a major medical center, in the Midwest. And their job right now, they're rolling out a new EMR system. And so their role right now, literally for the next 3 or 4 months, they will be doing nothing other than screencast tutorials. They're going to be, screen capturing and creating these tutorials on how to use the software, this new EMR software. And so for them, it's like, boy, that's my life. Every day for 8 hours, I'm screencasting. And so for some folks, they want to break out of that. So they're good at that, but I want to develop my skills as an e-learning developer in a broader manner, because screencasting, that's a skill set, but it's just one piece of what I'm capable of. And so how do I break out and get beyond that piece? So as you say, what am I good at? Absolutely. And then where do I want to go beyond? How can I expand my skill sets?
I'm sorry?
I didn't say anything, but I did want to using Articulate, you've spoken before about it's such a great tool because it really is easy enough for beginners, but you can so expand using Articulate. You can just, it seems seamless, the different things you can do with it.
Yeah, I think, from that development perspective, professionally, it is. You can break into, let's say you're picking up a tool, and Storyline, for example, in this case, easy for the new person to get into and start using, but then, as your skill set expands, as you want to develop yourself broader, it really gives you an opportunity to do that, to do some more intense development. So it's sort of analogous, for this whole process of how do I go from the beginning, at the start and develop my skills over time. And, so Storyline is one of those tools that really, you're right, Joy, it grows with you.
And so how do you advise those that want to break out of their daily grind? What do you say? I mean, you have some great tutorials, some great screeners. Do you point them to those things, or do you point them to a specific path behind the screens, so to say?
Yeah, I think, so if you look at, so why do people want to freelance? So I was thinking about this the other day. There's probably multiple reasons, but three big ones that come to mind are A, I just want to make a little extra cash. The college bills are coming for the kids, so I just want to make a little extra money. Number two might be those folks that I just mentioned, my friends that are screencasting all day long. I need a creative outlet. I want to expand my skills and do something more creative, to break out of the grind. And number three, there are a lot of folks that think, maybe this is going to be a full-time gig for me someday, and I want to become a full-time, be a Rick Zanotti and open up my own agency. So I think the answer to that, whichever those routes are, that's going to some degree dictate what your pathway is. So if I just want to make some cash really quick and I'm great at screencasting, then maybe I'm seeking out some contracts that I can just do that and it's going to be great. Okay. But if I want to go beyond that, I think for anyone who says, hey, I want to start, freelancing, the understanding needs to be there that it's just not freelancing, that suddenly as soon as you take that step, it's not, I'm no longer working for a company, I am the company. So I need to self-assess and look at where all those buckets that we might think of in e-learning, my dev skills with the tools, my visual design skills, my instructional design skills, my UX UI skills, my client management, contracting, all the legal stuff that goes with it, that Rick's probably well versed in at this point. But those are things that folks may not realize when they first decide, hey, I want to freelance, that there's more to it than just finding a contract and doing what I'm good at already. It's going to, at the very least, involve me taking some steps to develop my skills in those areas that maybe I'm not the most comfortable with or have no knowledge about.
Because all of a sudden you have to wear 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different hats.
Yeah, and you as a voice, voice artist, you've probably gone through the same thing. What does a contract look like? How do I bill? How do I invoice? What does an invoice look like? How do I fill that out? Who do I send it to? Do I need, do I need a lawyer to have business insurance? What's the legal setup for my organization, for my company? Not to scare anybody away from doing freelancing. But those are just some realities of that self-assessment. And the question is, are you ready for that? Because if you are, then it's a matter of assessing, all right, where are my skills in those areas? If I'm going to be a one-person shop, do I have to develop my skills in certain areas? Can I team with somebody? If maybe I'm not a great visual designer, maybe I'm not a great instructional designer, do I have colleagues? Do I have people that I network with at conferences that I can team with so that we can work together on this? Or do I need to develop my own skills in that area?
There was a book written years ago called The E-Myth, The Entrepreneurial Myth. And I listened to the book. It was an audio book the one I got. And there's a lot of good points in it. One, do you have enough Teflon? Are you really an entrepreneur, or do you think you're an entrepreneur? That's a real big distinction.
Yeah.
A lot of people think they can run a business thinking it's just going to happen by itself. Hey, I just started a new business and I'm rich. No, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way usually, unless you get really lucky. More often than not, it's a lot of work. It's a lot more work than you actually do when you work full-time for somebody. So if you think you're running a business to take more vacations, I got news for you. Let's see, the last vacation I took was probably 5 years ago, where I took a week.
Yeah.
And it's just not something, we call business trips vacations, because you're always doing something. And The smaller the business, the more you're going to work it. At the bigger, you might be able to offload more and more, but it just depends on what you want to do and what you, and that's why I kept saying, what are you good at? And do you have enough Teflon to let things slide off when they need to slide off? Because if somebody says, I don't like something, dunk, and you've just destroyed, that's it, that's the end of the world, I'm done. No, you can't do that. If you fail at one thing, that's just an opportunity to get better at doing it either again or do something different, better. I know Linda gets these calls. I get a lot of calls from people who want to do...
All the time. And it's always, they always say, how do I break into the business? I mean, I don't even get how, but they really think it's something that you can just break into. When I tell them, well, you know, actually, you will not be having health insurance. If your computer breaks down, you're not going to be paid because you're not going to be able to deliver product. You're going to be working 8, 9, 10 hours a day, and 70-80% of the time you're going to be looking for work, and maybe just 10-20% of the time actually working. That kind of is an eye-opener.
And I tell people something else. Like, for example, I get a lot of calls on voiceover too, because we do the broadcasts and we've done a little bit of voiceover. We do a lot of voiceover with projects. And people say, you know, how do I break into voiceover? I've never done it before. I go, well, for one, you better practice. Practice? But I have a good voice. No, you have a good voice. That doesn't mean you know how to read. That doesn't mean you know inflection, modulation, how to work with your voice, how to make it an instrument. Then you get kind of.
It doesn't mean that you can carry a story.
Right. And for example, Linda has an acting background. She went to the conservatory and learned. She worked for large companies. She was the voice of Little Miss Piggy in Germany. I mean, these are little things, but to get into that role, a lot of people apply, and you know, it takes the skill set to make it happen. And when I tell people you have to practice, I was listening to a pretty famous drummer the other day, and they said, how are you so good? What do you do? This guy's already in his late 50s. And he goes, oh, I practice every single day, a minimum of half hour. And they're like, what?
Wow.
You're great. I mean, you can play anything. He goes, I can. But that's because I practice a half hour. And everybody practices every day for a half hour? Da, 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 da. It's the basics. He's not practicing advanced stuff. He's practicing the simple ba, 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 ba. And you go, you know, when you really come down to it, it is about the simple stuff. I've practiced and taught martial arts for a long time, since I was a little one. And people always say, how do you get good at martial arts? Practice, and more practice. Doesn't matter how many times you throw that move or that punch or whatever, you have to do it good to the point you don't think about it, to the point it's so natural you do it. And that's everything. If you're going to work with Articulate, storyline, for example, and you don't know it, you're not going to be very good at it. You've got to practice it. You've got to be, and tell me what you think of this, because I know, Mike, you come up with some really good tutorials of things you can do. And one of those is, you know, the creative side of it. You're looking at the tool and you're looking at features of the tool and then coming up with ways to use it. But you need a curiosity for that. You need to be curious. What happens if you're trying to get into e-learning and you're not curious?
So no, actually, that's a great segue. So let's say you're trying to break into e-learning, or that you want to develop your skills, and this is where I'll wrap back around to the Articulate community. For me personally, I was in academia and I wanted to do e-learning, but again, it's different in academia than it is in the private setting in business and industry. So I needed to figure that out. And the way that I did that was via the Rapid eLearning blog, Tom Kuhlman's Rapid eLearning blog, which was dynamite. I mean, that was just an education in and of itself, in terms of just learning, about everything from interaction and visual design to working with clients in business and industry. But also equally as important was the community. And when you mentioned practice, as we talk about the support side, it's kind of scared folks from the freelancing thing with the reality of the business side. But at the same time, when it comes to develop your skills, and when it's time to do that, when you've self-assessed and these are the things I need to work on, that's where that community of practice comes in, and that you surround yourself with people who are going to be supportive of you. And it is a big risk to be able to step outside, because you've got to share. If you want to get feedback on your work, you need to share your work. And so that's one of the things that, in terms of that I really have appreciated about the Articulate community before I even started working with Articulate was the supportive nature of it. How I could come up with an idea, put it out there, knowing it's going to be a risk because, as you said, it's part of that Teflon process of developing that. But the nice thing about the Articulate community is we've tried to foster it in a way that the feedback is going to be constructive, but at the same time it's going to be caring. It's not going to be, you're not going to have a negative experience with folks in terms of giving you the feedback. So, I guess what I would suggest for folks who want to, because there's a typical process that we've seen folks go through that want to become e-learning developers or that want to become full-time e-learning, developers freelancing. It's that they get involved in a community of practice. For us, obviously, it's the Articulate community, but maybe it's some LinkedIn groups, because there are a lot of e-learning LinkedIn groups that are really very active. Might be the eLearning Guild, the groups there, but find a community of practice that you can bounce ideas off of. And then, especially if you're a newer developer, and this goes back to your question of where does that, how do you, if I'm not curious, what do I do? People are constantly sharing their ideas in these communities of practice, especially in the Articulate community. David Anderson, every week has what's called the eLearning Challenge. And it's a series of challenges where it doesn't even have to be with our tools necessarily. Most people use them, but we've got folks that are using other tools to complete the challenges. But it takes a common e-learning, challenge. It might be a design challenge, an interaction challenge, and says to the community, hey, what would you do with this? And then we have, in any given week, there might be, up to 50, 60, 70 submissions or more of folks saying, here's what I do, here's what I do. So I, as a new developer, can come in, immerse myself in this, and then start sharing, giving feedback, not only in my work, but then I can see all of the awesome ideas that other folks in the community have that they're sharing. And that then inspires me. If I'm not curious, at least I can look at it and say, oh, I could use that for this particular course, or I could use that for this idea. And so then you get that feedback and that back and forth. And so in terms of to keep it on that pathway, that's where you start. If you want to break out and be a freelancer, you start by developing your skills in that manner, in that community of practice, because what that's going to allow you to do then in terms of the practical is that's going to help you build a portfolio, okay, because you can use those challenges as portfolio pieces. And we've seen a lot of folks do that those challenges automatically get fed into their website that they have for their portfolio website. And then once that portfolio, it starts to develop, everyone asks, every company that you're going to want to try to contract with says, can we see your portfolio? Well, there it is. You've got this portfolio you're building. And so that community of practice also raises your profile. So you're in LinkedIn, you're in the Articulate community, you're in eLearning Guilds forums, you're building your presence. Not necessarily your brand, but your people are getting to know who you are. And so we have a lot of folks in the community who they get active, they start sharing, and then their name gets out there, and they start getting phone calls, they start getting emails from people who are also there. They say, hey, I saw this course that you did. I love it. Could you do something like that for us? And that's how it starts. But to go back to the comment earlier about you don't just break into the field. Yeah, you're working it. You're working, you're developing your skills.
Right.
But the cool part about going about it in this manner is that, again, you're in a community of practice of folks that are like-minded, that are supportive, that are helping you out. And again, it's risky for people because we're all afraid, I think, on some level, and most of us are, of sharing because, well, what if people are going to think about this course that I just did, this project that I'm sharing? But again, that's part of the process. So you've got to develop the Teflon, as you point out, Rick, but why not do it in a community of practice that's supportive and caring?
Oh, sure. And most people, like you said, tend to be professional. They're nice about it. And surprising enough, in the media world, most people are more than willing to share, unless you're a Flash developer. Those guys were really jerks in the forums. Oh, my gosh. I remember those early days of Flash. You got flamed for anything.
Yeah.
This doesn't happen in the e-learning world, except some of the e-learning forums I've seen are a little nasty, but it's usually just a small subgroup of people that are nasty. If you ignore them, they go away. I mean, really, they do. They just go away. It's not, well, nobody's paying attention to my meanness. I guess I'll leave. I'll go be mean somewhere else. Yeah. But by the way, when I said earlier, there's a lot of work you do. I didn't say one other thing, which is really true. When you enjoy what you do and you're having fun, it is fun. It's not work. It's now your passion. It's something you do because you enjoy doing it. Sometimes people ask me, what do you do when you go home after working a full day? I go, I play with mics. I get on home, I start recording, I'll sing, I'll talk, I'll practice, I'll make mock shows. And it goes, you do this, I like doing that, it's fun. And then I analyze, was that good? That was pretty crappy, let's try that again. But you do it all the time. But when my mic angle, no, it's not good, I need to change that, I need to do this. And to me, that's not work, it's fun. And a lot of people just say, well, I don't want to do that, then don't do it. Then maybe that's not the field for you. Or maybe you're that good at it, you don't need to practice. There are some who don't, they're just that good at it. But it is really a lot of fun. And when you get into it with people and you are sharing what you do, you might not always get a great comment. That's okay. Are they right? Are they wrong? I mean, ego comes into it sometimes. At that point, you have to say, you know what, let me get rid of the ego and let me look at this objectively. Well, how could it be better?
Yeah.
And that's another thing to ask yourself. When you do something, did I do the best I could? Could I do anything better? What can I remember when I first started learning how to program, this is when there weren't really a lot of computers out there. And I wrote something like a 250-line program. And my boss, who was a programming whiz, looked at me and said, you could have written that in 25 lines. 25? And then he showed me. It's like, yes, master. Because he knew the language better than I did. I didn't use functions that would have saved me a whole lot of, typing. And so that's how you learn. It's like I always tell people, be a sponge. Absorb what people give you. It's amazing how much you learn by being a sponge. Just remember to get squeezed out a little bit. You're going to get,
When I first started using Storyline, same thing. It was, oh, look at this really cool thing I created, and the trigger panel was, probably about 30 or 40 triggers long because I figured it all out. It was this sort of new, because I wasn't a programmer, but I could, the triggers and whatnot in Storyline, I could figure out, and I could make this happen. It was so exciting. And so I remember sharing that, and then Steve Flowers, who's a gentleman who's just brilliant. He's in our community, in the Articulate community. He's a superhero. He looked at it and said, oh, by the way, here's how you can do this. And it was some ridiculously small number with, maybe 4 or 5 triggers and, some states. But it was just that aha moment of, man, I've got so much to learn, and I think you're right that, if you open yourself up to that understanding that there's so much that other folks can share with you.
Well, you guys were the first ones to really come up with a community that made a difference.
Yeah.
Back when there are some good communities out there, but you guys were literally the first to put good people who really knew what they were doing in a community. Now, you've got David Torquemada Anderson, and I call him Torquemada, but those challenges aren't that easy always. But David's a good friend, and I love him for it. And, but that's good. He forces you to get out of the comfort zone a little bit and think about, how would you do this? And it's funny because there's a lot of ways to do some of those challenges, and they all make you think. And that's great. But, you guys started with about 3 or 4 really good people, with Tom and Dave and some of the other folks that were there.
Yeah, Jeanette Brooks.
She was great. And you just go, that alone, no matter what tool you were working with, because a lot of people work with many tools, that kind of knowledge and information was really valuable because you could use it everywhere. But if you were using Articulate Presenter or now Storyline or some of the new tools, a lot of it applies. And I thought that was inspiration all the time of, hey, look what they just came up with. That was really cool. And I remember Stephanie Harnett she used to love during the presenter days showing how to draw things in PowerPoint. And I'm sitting going, I like Photoshop, but PowerPoint's a heck of a lot easier for what she's doing. And I started using PowerPoint. And actually, due to her, I actually started using PowerPoint about 80% of the time for my graphics versus Photoshop, which is an interesting aside. But one time I sent her a note saying, okay, you drew a pincushion. Why don't you just buy some clip art? She writes, true, I could have. So You know, because you can spend a lot of time drawing finite figures, but she did make it interesting how you could build it almost like an illustrator right within a simple tool that everyone has like PowerPoint.
Yeah.
And then you bring it in.
What does it take for a developer to join the Articulate community? How does a developer join the community?
The community, you go to elearningheroes.com or community.articulate.com, and you just sign up for a free Articulate ID, and then you can start commenting and sharing. And yeah, it's really low friction. You know, we'll have a lot of folks who will you know, just come in, they'll get an account, maybe not even an account, they'll just read and they'll learn and they'll pick things up, and then a year later they'll sign in and say, hey, you know, I'm a long time, you know, viewer, you know, watcher here, and just wanted to start sharing. And that's you know, again, that's one of those great experiences when folks do that, you know, that you know, you're impacting, you know, as a community, you're impacting people that aren't really active, but at the same time, there's, you know, you're still having that impact. But yeah, it's easy. It's all you have to do is come and sign up for a free account, and you're off and rolling.
Great.
Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, I was self-taught in terms of how do I create e-learning, for example, in the business world. How do I create, you know, what's the stuff about portfolios and websites and SEO and all of those things that go into developing, you know, client relations and contracting. I gleaned all of that from the Articulate community. You know, and so you know, I went from ground zero, in a sense, to being, I think, pretty successful. And again, it was all free stuff. I didn't have to pay for the education. I had to have the gumption to go out there and get it.
And also, if you go to try to get an education in this, there's none.
Yeah,
there really isn't any. I mean, what are you going to go to a college degree in story? There's nothing. I mean, college degree in e-learning? No.
Yeah,
there's instructional design, but they never go into technology very often. So it's real interesting. Most of us, I think, are self-taught in the industry when it comes to e-learning, because there are some books and you're right. Ever since people like you folks on with Articulate came out with all those demos, there were very few demos. There weren't that many, and to this day there aren't as many. It's, you know, mainly the vendors and some consultants are putting them out, and you know, they do take a certain amount of time and effort, but they're there, and you didn't have that in the old days, and now you've got at least a starting point.
Yeah, that again, you know, for me, I think the most impressive thing about Articulate as a company, obviously, again, it's because it impacted me personally, was just that we, you know, take the time and put in the resources, as you pointed out earlier, in terms of staffing the forums with great people, but taking the time to not only create the tool, but then support people in utilizing the tool. You know, how do I take this tool and utilize it in practice? You know, how do I do that? You know, and I think it's not just the technical nuts and bolts of the tool. It's how do I apply this to, and then, you know, as I mentioned earlier, a challenge in the e-learning field that I may be running into at work. You know, so I think that's such a great thing about, you know, about the Articulate community is that approach, is that focus on support and care. So for me, that was it's been great, you know, being able to be on the other side of it, you know, for the last 4 years now in supporting other folks using the tools.
That's great. Now, from your point of view, you're now an e-learning manager with Articulate. What does that mean? What part of the role are you doing? Or did you take over what Tom did before, which was more the demos, or?
No, I've got just real quick a number of different hats that I wear at Articulate. You know, my primary responsibility right now has been working on the content library, which is one of the services in 360.
Yeah.
So I get to create the templates and work with the characters. So I get to, you know, help populate that area. But then I think I've got the, you know, hopefully no one from Articulate's watching, but I think I've got the best job at Articulate because I get to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
You know, I get to do that. I get to do the community work. I get to, you know, the examples and the blogging. I get to work, you know, when it comes time for marketing. You know, I get to help create some of the marketing materials. Cool. So I get to do a little bit of everything, and it's great. It's wonderful. Speaking of Tom, he pinged us the other day, another one of the services, speaking of support, with 360, we've got live webinars that subscribers can log into, they can sign into, and once, twice, several times, a week, we're running webinars where you can grow your skills again. In another way. So I'll be able to, to help out with that a little bit as well. Yeah, it's fun. I every day is something a little bit different, which is good for me.
Yeah. Somebody asked me just the other day, with Articulate 360, is there integration between products? And I said, probably. We haven't gotten it yet. It's going to be coming probably in the next week or two. But I imagine this. I know there's a certain amount of integration between products, but I don't know the extent of it. Is there an integration between, I guess there's 3 major products in it, Rise, Presenter, and Storyline?
Yeah, I guess it probably depends what in terms of what you are looking for integration-wise, so you can start in Presenter, for example, and, you can bring a Presenter project over into Storyline, and adapt it further. Rise is a bit different. It's a completely web-based authoring tool.
Right, it's kind of fun. It looks cool.
Yeah, it's so much. It's ridiculously fun.
Yeah.
If you haven't had a chance to play with it.
I've only seen it in the demo, and I was going, that looks fun.
Yeah, so. It is. It is really cool. So I'm not sure what I can share. I will say that there are some future integrations coming. In different ways. But
that's cool.
Yeah, it's if you get a chance to play with Rise.
Yeah, I think it's in the next week or two.
I don't want to steal Megan's thunder.
Yeah, no, that's true. She'll be showing probably quite a bit, and we'll have it by then. By then, I'll have time to have played with it. I mean, we know Storyline, we know Presenter, we work with them. That's probably our main tool, the Storyline. But it looked like they've added a lot of functions to Storyline. So even though it's not Storyline 3, everybody thinks it's 3. It is 3, basically, because they've added quite a bit of functionality to it, new triggers, and kind of even some stuff that can make you have almost game-like things. You now have collision detection. I immediately caught on to collisions.
I made a Space Invaders game the other day because of collision detection. You can do that type of thing.
I know. That's cool.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, when I saw that, I go, that's cool. Collision detection. I like that.
So, not that has anything to do with corporate e-learning.
No, but it does.
But it's fun.
But it's important.
Yeah, and I think, and again, for me, again, obviously, I work for Articulate, but even before I started with Articulate, the tools for me, they inspire joy. It's just it's fun to play, and they make playing easy, especially as a non-programmer. And so, Rick, you're probably well beyond me in terms of programming skills. To be able to open up the original Storyline and look at the triggers panel and understand what it meant, and you'd be able to start figuring, I can make this happen by, all right, when the user clicks do this, I can understand that, so that for me, it's just the tools spark joy. In Rise, again, when you get a chance, it's for me the same type of thing. It just
looks fun, and I'm familiar with tools like Adobe Muse and some other web development tools. And it does a lot of that. You've got like the parallax viewing things coming in and out, and it just looks fun.
Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it, and I'm sure Megan will show you the fun stuff. So
yep, that'll be good.
Yeah.
So of the new stuff, what are some of the things you like the most that you've already had a chance to play with and use? Let's say Storyline.
I think you mentioned the collision detection. That's really fun, but there's a lot of as we were, in the development process, there's a lot of behind-the-scenes workflow improvement stuff, and it's not going to be a huge, big ticket, hey, look at this type of thing, but there's a lot of workflow enhancements and little things to make things just work better. For example, picture placeholders. A slight change used to be that if I added a trigger to a picture that was in a placeholder, that when I would delete the picture, the trigger would disappear.
Right.
Now the trigger persists with the placeholder.
Oh, good.
So
That's actually really nice. Yeah, that's a good feature.
The trigger persists. Something you're going to shout from the rooftops. Guess what? The placeholder triggers stay. But from a day-to-day development standpoint, it's really cool to not have to recreate the trigger. So there are a lot of little pieces, touches and flourishes throughout, that folks may not immediately see that, that are going to make the day-to-day development speed, a lot faster. So
Are there things that you would say open up new opportunities for the content? That there's, so you have the day-to-day workflow that's now easier, but can you foresee, or have you found things that just lead you to approach a course differently?
I think, so one of the big pieces is the rendering engine for HTML5 was completely rewritten from the ground up. Because when, the first for HTML5 for Storyline 2, boy, it's been several years now, that HTML5 spec wasn't as mature, so now we're able to really take advantage of the mature spec, and so the HTML5 output is dynamite. It's really great. Especially on more mobile devices. So if you're thinking, like if I'm going to target iPad, so I had a client, for example, Storyline 1, that wanted to target, notebook and iPad. It's like, oh, can't do that. Well, with Storyline 360, now absolutely, it makes it really easy to do that because that HTML5 output, is so smooth. So not that necessarily changes that particular project per se in terms of how I'm designing it, but as bigger picture, it allows me to do a lot more in terms of the, in terms of distribution of the content.
Yes.
So yeah, I would say, in terms of what Rick was mentioning, the collision detection, I think that, along with, say, dials, the new dial interaction. Someone initially might look at that and say, what am I going to do with a dial? But if I'm in the business, industry, manufacturing sector, and I need to create, say, a machine interface where maybe it's like a CNC or a lathe, some industrial machining that I need to adjust some settings on, suddenly being able to bring in a custom image, a dial, and convert that into, because we've got the convert to dial feature, and be able to have that capability, that opens up a whole new realm of development, for me. So especially, again, if I'm freelancing, if I'm a contractor and I'm looking at helping out folks in that sector, it may seem like just a small thing. Well, what am I going to do with a dial? But it opens up a whole lot of possibility in terms of the types of interactions that I can build. So that's going to be a big one. Collision detection. If you're thinking, I was working with my kids the other day on an idea for a science experiment built in Storyline, and what happens when these things touch one another, and can I move things around without that collision detection, so this beaker over here, what if it happens if, if this chemical impacts this one? So there are those features that really allow you to start to get more creative because it makes the development easier. So, yeah.
You can do all sorts of fun stuff with that. You can do your first-person shooters with that game. Oh, got hit by the bullet. Well, remember, you did something similar about 3 years ago where you had a movie demo, and you had, I think, something shooting something at a distance, and it would stop the movie, and so that was the same. Now that you could do that with collision detection.
Yeah, I had my kids walking across the...
Yeah, and now you can do that with literally collision detection.
Yeah, I'd have to think that through, how that would work with video.
You'd have to, with video it's a little tricky because you can't identify an object in the video as something you can collide with.
Right.
But, okay, that's your challenge for the week. We expect an answer back by next week. We're good.
Yes, we do.
Mike, hey, I really appreciate it. For all you people watching, Mike is actually in the frozen tundra, minus 28 degrees right now, and he took some time out from his,
snow shoveling.
Snow shoveling to join us and stay warm. Next time, Mike, you should fly down and do the show live with us. We're 64 degrees right now.
Yeah. But it was sunny today. The sun was out, so that was good.
And we're actually kind of rainy right now, so that's rare for us, but we need it.
See, I'm always torn because I love the sunshine. So there's a part of me that would take sunny and 5 below, 28, like I said, with wind chill here below, over 60 and rainy. So
I don't know. I like the snow. It's okay. Anyway, Mike, hey, it's been a real pleasure having you on. Thanks for sharing some of your views and ideas on professional development, something that a lot of people are always contemplating. What do I do? And I think that's we should probably have more talk on that in the show because a lot of people are consultants. They are freelancers, and some work for companies consistently. Some are trying to get the contracts, and how do you justify being a freelancer versus a full-time job? And it's a choice. You have to make a choice of what you like and how good you are at it. And if you can sustain it, good, do it. You'll have a good time. So there is a lot of fun, actually. But even if you're full-time, as long as you enjoy what you do, you're not working, you're having a good time.
Yeah. Well, and I think, that's a great point, especially if you're working full time and you want to stretch your creative legs a little bit, come to the Articulate community, do the e-learning challenges, get involved, because it's always going to, help you back in the workplace. You can always take those skills that you're developing back into the workplace to grow there as well. So, yeah, I just want to encourage folks to come on out, elearningheroes.com or go to articulate.com and come to the community. We'd love to have you if you're not there yet. So,
sounds great. Well, happy holidays, Merry Christmas. We will see you soon, Mike. I hope I'll see you at Learning Solutions.
Yeah, I should be there in the spring.
I think we're going to that one. We missed last year, but I think this year we're going to go.
It's hard to pass up sunny and
it's nice. I also they always do it at the Hilton. It's a nice hotel. The people are nice out there. Just don't go to dinner at downtown Disney. That's torture. But anyway, have a good one, Mike, and have a good holidays, and we'll talk to you soon again.
Thanks so much for being on the show, Mike.
Great. Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it. It's
great.
Our
pleasure. And Linda, we'll see you next week on eLearnChat.
Yes.
Have a good one, everyone.
No, we don't have one next week.
We don't?
Think.
Oh, well, maybe I won't see you next week. We'll see. We'll see if we have one. We don't have one. I thought we did. We'll see you next week. We'll see you next year if we don't have one next week. And have a great one, everyone. Happy holidays, and take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.